And this one's challenging, right? So as entrepreneurs, which most of us are, we're flipping, we're doing this real estate game. We're traditionally not the most organized people. Okay. Welcome to another episode of Fund Flip Repeat. We are your private money lenders in Texas and Oklahoma, Joel and Ryan. And today we're going to be talking about some of the things that we see as private money lenders to help you as investors avoid some common mistakes. Because let's be honest, a lot of the times when it comes to like ARVs or comps or construction issues, those are not the things that are allowing deals to fall through at the closing table. It is the funding part is where deals can fall apart. And these are the things that we see over and over again. So we're going to talk about that from our perspective to hopefully help you avoid some of those things. So yeah, Ryan, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. Ready to dive into it, Joel.
Awesome. Cool. So a lot of this stuff is easy peasy. So, I mean, right out the gate, I mean, the first thing, let's just talk about it. When you have a deal, let's say you've got 123 Main Street, you've secured the asset, you've secured the deal, you've done all that work getting the deal. Now you need to secure the funds for it. So let's say you've got your private money guy that you want to call. I mean, what's a good way right out the gate to build, trust in 5 minutes or less, right?
Yeah, I think with a lot of these things, and we'll probably come back to this a couple of times today, is really focusing in on as transparent communication as you possibly can, right? Keep it really open, keep those lines of communication wide open. And then when you're communicating, communicate really transparently, because that's something that we're committed to in terms of when we interact with our investors, right? Let's be really open. Let's be really honest. Let's be really transparent. Let's even be vulnerable sometimes if the situation calls for that. And so that's probably the best way immediately to set that tone right then and there for a long-term fruitful relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And that's easy stuff too, right? You just pick up the phone, you have that conversation, you're super honest and open about what you're looking to do. And I think having a well thought out plan and presentation is important too. So show the lender that you have done your homework, right? You've done some of your due diligence. Hey, this is the property that I have. This is what I believe the ARV is. Here's some comps. This is what I'm projecting my rehab budget to be. This is how long I think it's going to take. So you're not just calling and saying, hey, I need money for this project. You're saying, hey, this is why I think the money would be allocated well for this project for it to be profitable for everybody involved, right? We always talk about partnerships, and that's kind of how we look at it as a partnership. So, hey, let's invest our money in this deal together. It's a well thought out plan. It's a good deal, and kind of present that in that way. And that immediately goes, a really, really long way.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Okay. So, I mean, one thing we'll drop in the show notes as well, I think will be kind of cool is just in case you haven't done this before, maybe you've done this a million times, but we'll just have a little one sheet that kind of can outline, a good like loan pitch. So we'll put that in the show notes, very simple stuff. But yeah, just having a good conversation. So next, like let's talk about some of the things that we alluded to in the beginning is these are kind of the bigger things, right? Is some of the things that we see are actual deal killers. So Ryan, from your perspective, like what are some of the things that you've seen that can be red flags to you that could potentially lead to being a deal killer ultimately in the end?
I think like one of the most important pieces, or I should say the three components that we need kind of right up front immediately, because we want to get back to you as quickly as possible, right? We want to make sure that we're moving quickly for you, we're moving smoothly for you so you can close lots of deals. So we need to know what that purchase price is, what the rehab budget's going to be, and what the ARV is going to be. And I think one of the things that is fairly common is maybe we end up being a little bit far apart on the ARV because sometimes, not always, and everybody has this in their life, whether it's, you're a real estate investor and you get emotionally tied to that property and to that deal. And so you think you can
Yep.
squeeze every little bit of juice out of it. I think we all have that in our lives in some aspect. Everybody has something in their life where they get too emotionally attached and the objectivity goes out the window. And so if we're too far apart right out the gate and we can't find what would be a reasonable middle ground on the ARV, then we probably won't be able to provide what you are expecting as the investor on the total funding of the deal side of things, right? So managing your own expectations and being honest with yourself doing a quick check-in with yourself. Am I over emotional in this deal right now? And do I need to take a step back and look at it a little bit more objectively?
Yeah, and I agree because you really do have to remove your emotions from it. Like I would say that is the ARV is definitely a red flag, right? So if like it is $100,000 house and you're saying if an investor might call and say, "Hey, I think this is a $2 ARV," well, immediately that is a little bit of a pause and a hesitation because it's like that's not realistic, right? Like let's make sure that we're not inflating this way too much. Well, how are we getting to that number? Can you share some comps that can back that up? And if not, it's like that really is a truly red flag because it's like maybe we don't know that area enough and we need to like take a second look or take a step back because you don't want to be the one setting the comp for the neighborhood unless you that's like your niche and like that's a whole different conversation. uh, Typically you don't want to be the one setting the comp for the neighborhood, right? So you want to have that data backed by you. So, another thing I would say is just, the rehab, right? Estimating your rehab budget, your rehab cost, and then your rehab time. And then being able to have like a crew that you are familiar with, that you've worked with, or at least somebody that you've gotten multiple bids on that you're going to be working with that you feel comfortable with. So like what are your thoughts on like some of that stuff when it comes to like rehab estimates and timelines and stuff?
Yeah, I think that we have experienced um, various approaches from our investors where you see some folks who they're going to be a little bit more conservative, and what I mean by that is maybe they're going to build in some extra things that may or may not need. So I was looking at a scope of work yesterday for a loan that we might do really soon here. The investor isn't sure if there's any foundation issues yet, but they have the line item in there. And so if they end up not needing that and the foundation's great, what's the worst case scenario? You had some extra money because usually, like we say on here, it's going to take a little bit longer than you think it's going to take, and it's going to probably cost you a little bit more than you think as well. So if you have some buffers built in there, that's probably sometimes a smarter way to do it than trying to squeeze every little dollar out and pay as little interest as possible. And I think that's a temptation and it's legitimate, right? You want to cut your costs down, you want to increase your profit, but you also don't want to get yourself into a situation where you wrote that budget too light. And I think the tighter you write the budget, the more you're exposing yourself to potential risk, the more you're willing to build in a little bit of a buffer for yourself. Hopefully you don't need all of the buffer, but it provides you the opportunity to still have a smooth exit. And a smooth exit means that you're going to be able to do another deal.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's nothing a lender likes more than saying, "Hey, and I've also built in a 5 to 10% contingency," right? Because that's showing that you're already being, realistic, trying to protect yourself in the deal. And that goes a long way. Not saying that's required, but building that in is, I would say it's advisable because it always does take a little bit longer. So having that preparedness ahead of time is you're playing offense, not defense, right? So you're being proactive, not reactive in the project ahead of time, which I think goes a long way. And I think the same thing on like timelines too. So when we're having those conversations and say, okay, let's say it's a $40,000 rehab project on a 2,000 square foot home. And we say, well, how long do you anticipate the project or timeline to take? And you say, I'm going to get it done in a week or 2 weeks. Okay, let's be honest. Let's be realistic. That's not the case, right? It's going to take what it's going to take, and it's not going to get done in a week or 2 weeks. So if your contractor's telling you that as well, here's a rule of thumb that I've usually used when I'm doing my flips. Whatever the contractor's timeline tells you it is, just double it. And if you're happy with what that doubled timeline is, then you're good. Okay. So that will help you from being like angsty and upset, like build that in, but also you can have that conversation with your contractor as well, because they're going to be telling you those timelines and they're always going to shorten it as well. So you can just say, okay, you told me this is going to get done in 6 weeks. Let's go ahead and plan for 8 weeks. Make that plan with them. Is that agreeable to you? Can we go ahead and like set that 8 weeks? And are you saying if we don't get this done in 8 weeks, like this is going to be the plan moving forward, and kind of like prepare for that as well? So not only from our side, but like do that with your contractors as well and your crew.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it's a great point, Joel. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, you're good. I mean, the other thing I was going to say is, lack of exit strategy. Okay. It's easy to say, hey, I'm a flipper. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to flip this house. Or I'm a burr guy. I'm going to go in here and hold this house. You know, the best thing you can do is say, hey, and man, guys, I'm telling you, the lenders love to hear this. If you say, hey, I 100% fully plan on flipping this house, but I've already penciled it out, it still works as a rental. So worst case scenario, if I had to burr it out, I can still hold it and I would feel comfortable with it and the numbers make sense. Not saying that happens every 100% of the time, but if you have more than one exit strategy already planned, that's already setting you way further apart than most because they're just saying, hey, I'm a flip guy, I'm a burr guy, I'm a whatever guy. And that's fine. But having multiple exit strategies, again, is just being that extra preparedness goes so far.
Yeah. I think what we're hitting on too with all of these topics, there's a central theme, and that's management of expectations, right? As long as you're managing your expectations realistically on the ARV, on the rehab budget, on what's actually going to work for this property realistically from an exit strategy standpoint. And then on our side, we're doing the same thing with you, right? Because we're your partner at the end of the day, right? Not just your lender. And so managing through those expectations together between what you have penciled out, like Joel was saying, but then also your agreements with your crews and your contractors. If you can effectively manage expectations, you won't just be successful in flipping. You'll be successful in just about anything that you set your mind to.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really well said. I agree with that. Okay. One other mistake I can think of that I can hit on here, and Ryan, if you have others, we can hit on that too before we move on to the next topic, but is and this one's challenging, right? So as entrepreneurs, which most of us are, we're flipping, we're doing this real estate game. We're traditionally not the most organized people. Okay. So I can be honest and transparent about that to a degree. So, but having disorganized documentation and just like straight up ghosting during the underwriting process, if it's challenging just to get what the basic things that is needed in the beginning of the process, that's a red flag from the lender's perspective, right? Because like, how hard is it going to be for the next 6, 8, 9 months during the project if we can't even get like some of the simple stuff up front? So we're saying this from our perspective to be helpful, but those are the things that we can look for it. And like having, just create simple stuff, right? Create a Google Drive or a folder, have your LLC docs, your driver's license, whatever you need. So every single time you need to do a loan or whatever, you just have it. It's there every single time, right? Once you already do a loan, like say with fixed lending as an example, the first time we already have your stuff. So the next time is that much easier. And it's not like we need a lot of stuff anyways. So if the small stuff is difficult, that is definitely a red flag. And bad communication of like, hey, trying to track you down and chase you for like a scope of work or something. It's like, that's just not setting this up for success on either side.
Yeah. And, something that we've seen multiple times recently, this is a super simple thing, but, just a little tip for you all. Most of you are working out of an LLC, right? It's a super smart, cost effective way to run your real estate investment business. Just make sure that LLC is in good standing. That can hold you back because if you're a new investor with fixed lending, for example, that's one of the pieces that we need as we're doing that whole underwriting process that Joel was talking about. You're then dependent on the Secretary of State updating your good standing cert in time, and you don't want to be in that spot if you're trying to close a deal fast, right? So just do whatever you got to do to set reminders in your Outlook calendar, in your phone. It's super, super simple. And then just be ahead of that. Make sure your LLC is always in good standing. So you're going to be smooth.
Yeah. And let's be honest, guys, I get it. It's the more of the boring and mundane things of like, hey, I've got to send this LLC thing over. I've got to make sure it's in good standing. Like, nobody loves 100% of the job that they do day in and day out, right? So that's some of the stuff that we get it. It's not like the most fun, exciting stuff. You don't wake up saying, I can't wait to send my LLC docs over to the lender. Get it, 100%. But think about it in this perspective, right? Because I'm the same way. I'm an investor, guys. We all are. So think about it in this way though. You work so hard and you look at dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of deals. You're making offers day in and day out. You're negotiating contracts. You finally secure that asset. you get excited, right? The adrenaline's pumping. And then you kind of just like drop the ball on securing the funds. But securing the funds is just as important as securing the deal. So secure that deal and be just as motivated to secure the funds, and don't let a deal die, right? Because it's like you've worked so hard to secure that asset. Don't let that asset that you've worked so hard fall through because you didn't follow through and secure the fund. So I guess maybe what would we call that, like 80-20 rule or something like that. So yeah, interesting way of looking at it, I guess. But
Well, Joel, it goes back to our background, right? I know we've both shared that we're military guys, and what did they beat into our brains at boot camp? Whether it was, Air Force for me, Marines for you, attention to detail, right? How many times did we hear attention to detail, attention to detail? And it was how you press your uniform or polish your boots. Again, I didn't wake up in the morning saying I can't wait to fold my bed into hospital corners and have my, drill sergeant inspect my bed. But they were laying the
sure.
foundation for success in my career and really in your life, right? And so it's the same thing with this stuff. The last episode, what did we talk about? Wesley talked about surveys. Super, super exciting topic, right? But the point was spend a small amount of money to protect yourself and protect your profit at the end.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. Yep. It's those small things. Yeah. The devil's in the details. 100%. And that's what can make or break anything. And that's challenging, and it's easier said than done. But it makes all the difference in the world. And that's what can set you apart from like good to great. And I truly do believe that. So, okay. So we talked about the conversations, we talked about some of the mistakes, but like, let's talk about like what a good, great lender can actually do for you. So let's like flip the script a little bit. And it's not just about like, hey, the lender, the only thing I care about is they can fund quickly. Like that is a piece of it. If they're a good lender, absolutely 100% of the time, they should close on time every time. But what great lenders do, in my opinion, can also help coach. I'm not saying like, an actual like coaching